Before we start the program, we'd like to share a couple housekeeping items. First, this program is being recorded, and registrants will receive a link to the program recording. Also, the audience has joined this webinar in listen-only mode. You can submit your text questions via the questions pane in the webinar control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We'll collect these and address as many as we can during the Q&A section at the end of today's webinar.
Generation Gap, presented by Dan Negroni of Launchbox 365. This webinar is brought to you by the American Bar Association Young Lawyers Division. I am Joanne Grages-Burnett, and I serve as the Professional Development Coordinator for the ABA YLD and as Associate Director of Career and Professional Development at Stetson University College of Law in Gulfport, Florida. I am honored to serve as today's moderator. No matter where we work, effective communication with our colleagues is a must. Today's presentation will focus on three main points. First, why you should make relationship management your career's top priority. Second, how you can develop strong relationships within your organization and with clients. And third, practical tips for how to coach yourself into an A-game career. Please chime in with your questions throughout the webinar. This program is all about you. Before I introduce our speaker, I want to take a moment to thank a few people who were instrumental in making today's webinar happen. Tracy Kempf, ABA YLD Product Development Manager, Jared Marino, Director of Client Success, Operations and Finance at Launchbox, and the ABA YLD Professional Development Team. And now, please allow me to introduce Dan Negroni. Dan is an author, coach, speaker, attorney, entrepreneur, and parent of millennials. He has built a business predicated upon connecting innovative young professionals with age-old experience, or in other words, bridging the gap between generations. His experience as a big firm lawyer and general counsel allows him to provide unique value to the legal community, bar associations, law firms, and administrators. Not your parents' tips, tools, soundtrack, or talk, Dan will question and provoke each of you in this participatory experience to think about what you can do to develop, connect, and engage cross-generationally to build results for yourself and your firm or organization. His best-selling book, Chasing Relevance, available on Amazon, will give you tips on mindset, skill set, tool set, and help you deliver results across generations while practicing law. To learn more about Dan and his team of coaches, many of whom are also lawyers, please visit launchbox365.com or contact him at dan@launchbox365.com. And now, let's get started. Dan, take it away.
Take it away. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, or good afternoon, depending upon where you are. Today, I get to spend time with my favorite types of people, believe it or not, lawyers and young people. And that's because I think I'm young and I am a lawyer. But more importantly, today we're going to cover three really important things, which is really how to build the best career through building relationships in the workplace, how to strengthen them, and how to communicate with any walk of life, any age, any gender, diversity, whatever it is, how to really create the career you want. So let's get started. There are three things that we're going to talk about today that Joanne was saying in the introduction and the title. And the first is why. Why are relationships so important? The second question is, how do I master relationships? How? The how I do it. And then the third question is, what are the tools that I can keep in mind in my bag of tricks to remind me to get this stuff done all the time? And we say it, as you can see on the screen, in mindset, skill set, tool set. And mindset is really the why. So I'm going to ask you this question right up front, which is, why do you think relationship building is the most important skill? And no matter where I talk, and by the way, you guys can ask questions through the chat box and we'll try and answer them. So it's not just a monologue. But actually the question is, what is the most important work-life skill? And the answer is clearly building relationships. Why is that so? It's because we're human beings. We're all people. And in order to get anything done, we need other people. People need people. I think there was a song like that. But clearly, it's about people controlling power, money, love, information, all those things, having clients. So we need to focus on building relationships, which are the most important thing. And we need to learn how to do that with the skill set and then have these tips. What's really funny is when I get to present to high school students, I ask them, Out of the three things, mindset, skill set, and tool set, what do you think is the most important? And clearly, from the mouth of babes, they answer mindset. And the answer is, with mindset and understanding that relationships are so critical, I can achieve skill set and tool set. So, what I'd like to do is hopefully take this next hour that we have together to provoke you in a shift of mindset to really understanding how good you need to be at building relationships. So, let's get started. Um, I love this frame, and it's a picture of Mad Men. And in the video clip, if you've ever seen it, Peggy is with Don Draper, who's her boss in the 1950s, and she's telling him, "You never say thank you. You never tell me I'm good at anything. You never teach me anything." And Don Draper's view to her is, "Look, you get a paycheck. I don't have to say thank you. And more importantly, you should be thanking me and Jesus along the way that we've provided a job for you." And that's the way it rolls. And unfortunately, that is the prevailing view of a lot of older people in the workplace. And that is what we face, especially in law and especially in professional services, where they are old school types of professions. And so the question is, how do we deal with that challenge? And how do we deal with the challenge that most senior lawyers have a thought about younger lawyers? And that is that they may be disloyal, that they may not want to put in the effort. They may not have the same career goals. They may want to jump ship when things get tough. They may not want to work as hard. And they're just different. And they don't get it the way that a senior lawyer got it. And so there's this big disconnect. So I don't believe that's true. And I love millennials. I'm going to come right out of the closet and tell you I love millennials. And I believe where youth and experience meet is this magical place. And that's what we need to be focusing on in our businesses. So let's do a little bit of background work to understand what a millennial is. A millennial is someone born between 1980 and 1997. They are the largest generation and portion of the population in the US. They're 2.4 billion of the world's population, and 60% of the world's population is under the age of 30. Gen Z is right behind them, those people born after 1997, 1998, and they are about, I think, 45% of the workforce, growing to 75% of the workforce. So we need to figure out how to get along because the world is changing completely rapidly, and we need each other. And when I wrote this book, actually, you'll see millennials is crossed out in the title and replaced with next generation. And I usually ask the question, why did we cross out millennials? And people will say to me, well, Dan, you wanted to sell more books. And so after millennials, there's Gen Z. You wanted the book to be able to endure. Not the answer. Or people say to me, millennials hate the term millennials, which they do. Even millennials don't want to be millennials. And I understand that because of the negative connotations, which again are not true. But the real reason is this. It says we want to understand, engage, and maximize next generation leaders in the workplace. And here's the challenge with bridging the gap is we all need to be next generation leaders, which is we all need to understand that the world has changed and we need to be next generation leaders to create these better relationships internally and externally within our law firms and organizations to win. And that's really what we're going to talk about today is how to do it. So I just want to set some background, which is this is not new news. This challenge about youth and having contempt for youth has been since Socrates said this quote about Plato, that they had bad manners, contempt for authority, chatter all the time in place of exercise, contradict their parents, gobble up their food, and tyrannize their teachers. So it's not new news. What's been so different? You guys know what's been so different and why the world is so different and why there's this heightened big negativity around millennials and the workplace is completely polarized. A matter of fact, age is the biggest polarization. Never in an organization would you hear, oh, those black people are disloyal or don't want to work that hard, or women don't want to work that hard, or they have different career goals. But you hear that about age and you hear it at a water cooler. You hear, I don't understand them. And the question is, why is it so polarized? And the answer, I believe, is technology. And now we know what we don't know in an instant. I don't have my phone because Jared over there is filming us and taking pictures, but we can find out whatever we need to do immediately and all information comes to us. And so the pace at which we work and the ideas that we have given us a new power, the new power of millennials in the workplace. And that divisiveness is something we really need to work through, and we're going to teach you how to do that by teaching you how to figure out to build relationships. So since that big disconnect is still there, what are we going to do to solve the big disconnect? And I believe it is predicated upon relationship building, which is the number one most important thing in your personal life and your professional life. And the thing is, we suck at it. I mean, we really don't do a good job of teaching it. We don't teach it in grade school. We don't teach it in high school. There's certainly not a course in law school. And then when you get to a law firm, they just expect you to know it. Why are we so dang bad at framing the skills that we're going to talk about today? And I think it's because it's tough and it's complicated and relationships are messy, as you'll see today. So let's talk about the divide just a little bit more. All you guys, you young leaders, technology serves you in your personal life. You can click to get Uber Eats. You can click to get an Uber. You can get Airbnb. You can get something delivered the same day. Technology serves you in life. When you get to the law firm, technology doesn't serve you in navigating, or in a government type of job, in navigating how to deal with people and navigating how to get clients or understand clients. That needs to be taught and that needs to be learned, and those behaviors need to be learned. And there's no button you can push. And it takes time. It takes time to understand that. And since everything in your personal life is so easy with the clicks of the button, it's alarming why it's not so easy in the workplace. And the biggest question is, we call millennials and Gen Zs digital natives. All the old folks believe that the world was so different and it was so hard, and they did it the hard way and they learned it and they walked 2 miles in the snow to the bus and all those things. And that you should do that too. Well, here's the problem. You guys have no memory of what it used to be like when I started practicing law. There was no email. And there were rarely computers. We were actually typing documents on automatic typewriters. And you have no memory of that. And the senior partners or the senior people in higher positions, they have a big memory of it and they want you to understand it. But you shouldn't have a memory of it. And it's okay. So the question is, how do we work towards getting the middle and solve that challenge? And to me, it boils down to this: mindset, skill set, and tool set. So I'm going to ask you guys a question, and I think it's an important question, and I don't know if you've asked it. If you have a bad relationship with your senior partner, or you can't get to get them to understand, or you have a bad relationship with your boss, or the culture of your government organization is not good, who do you have the ability to control or change? Only yourself. So you can't change them, but you can change yourself, and I can promise you, for all the law firms and government entities and bar associations we work for, if you do change yourself and figure out how to get the skill set and tool set to master relationships that we're going to talk about, you can change the nature of your relationship with those people and really start to understand them. It's all about thinking, do I see a difficulty in every opportunity, or do I see every difficulty as an opportunity? And that mindset is critical, and it takes hard work. That's why we've all started to meditate. We've all started to do daily practices, affirmations, all those things. Sounds like soft shit, so to speak. It's not. It's really critical stuff to figure out how to be your best in the workplace. Okay, I'm going to teach you, probably if you take nothing from this presentation at all, I want you to take the platinum rule. Most of you, if I asked you what the golden rule would say, oh, Dan, the golden rule is this: do unto others as you do to yourself. Well, the problem with that rule is not everyone wants the same thing. If I apply the rule and I treat my wife the way I want to be treated, it doesn't work because she doesn't want the same things. These companies and big firms that have understood that we treat employees and clients the way they want to be treated, not the way we want to be treated. And that is the biggest disconnect with millennials. And that's why some of these companies are so great. We understand what millennials or younger people want from the workplace. And really the number one thing you guys want is actually growth and capability and the ability to learn and grow. And if we give you that, along with the other things you want, like authenticity and communication skills and purpose will win. So I want to teach you guys this every time you're having a conversation with someone. If you think about what do they want from me and what's the best way to figure out what they want from you, it's to ask them. We don't do enough of that. Okay, so let's just go through some of the stats real quick, and then we'll get into the real meat of the presentation. And here's the deal with employees. There are myths about millennials, and here they are. And you can see this old guy. I don't know if he looks like anyone you work with, but they say millennials have a lack of patience, lack organizational loyalty, a sense of entitlement. They want everything now. They want different career goals. They don't deal well with authority, and they want everything digital. And if they're not getting what they need, they jump ship. How much of that is true? I can push on mixed audiences. Some of it's true, and some of it's not true. Some of it's just being young. But most of it's not true. And then what we say about the other generation are all these other negative things. Old people like me, we're not tech savvy, in it for the money. They don't care about people, and flexible, don't like change, not willing to trade stability for the pursuit of passion. And they have their own golden rule, which is I've got the gold, I make the rules. Sit down, shut up, and do what I say. And we're afraid of non-traditional approaches like working from home or not working in, or working part-time if you're a woman or a male who you want to have a child, all those things. The truth is some of that's true and some of that's not true. But the truth is focusing on all those myths is a waste of time. So let's stop it. And let's figure out what are we doing about it. The challenge is most companies and law firms don't have a plan to engage young lawyers, young talent, using the platinum rule. But if they did, they would win. And we see it every time we implement that platinum rule. And here's the other challenge. You young guys, you just want guides. You're super optimistic. 84% of you totally are optimistic about the future and what you're going to get, even though you are the first generation that probably will do worse than their parents. But 76% of the same subset of that group of young people that are optimistic, they have no idea how to get there. And they lack confidence, and they need help, and they need guidance, and they want guides. And we need to figure out a way how to strengthen relationships and create communication so we can do that thing like guide in a world that's becoming increasingly more pressured for time. And so how do we do that? And how do you foster that as a young person to get the old people to do that for you, the older people, or you to really want to be mentors, and to enjoy being mentors? And so that's what we need to do. We need to do something. So I have 3 simple rules along with the platinum rule for you guys. If you just followed the platinum rule and these 3 rules, you'd win. You'd know how to build relationships. First one is show up. You know what showing up is? Being present. It's listening, active listening. Being real is really being authentically honest in a way that serves other people. And then the third rule is to make it about others. If you show up, you're real, and you make it about others instead of yourself, along with understanding the way people want to be treated, the platinum rule, you're going to win every time, because the truth is what you guys want, I talked about it briefly, and what great leaders do to manage well are the same thing. You want to learn and grow capability. You want authenticity and feedback and purpose. And look right next to it as to what great leaders do to manage well. They lead, guide, and teach. Well, if you want to grow, that's a great mentor to have. They create trust, which is all about authenticity and being real. They focus on communication, and usually they're servant focused. And so if what young people want and what great leaders do to manage well are the same thing, why do we have such a difficult time? And the real reason is most lawyers suck at managing, or they don't understand that. But it's simple. So I want to teach you guys how to do your part in doing it. So we talked about internal versus this is external clients or peers. The same thing is true. You guys are the key to them, to all these senior lawyers understanding the future of their clients. And don't take that lightly. There's so much value you can provide, but you need to provide it and communicate in a way that makes the seniors or your bosses feel like it's about them and not about you. If you look at what Nike and great companies do, they used to say their slogan was just do it. And then it was be like Mike. And now it's if you wear Nike, you'll be great and you'll grow. But look what they say to their employees. It's the same consistent message. If you work for Nike, you'll be changed forever. You'll be changed because you will grow. And that's the same thing you want to employ in a law firm or in a business where you're a lawyer, any business, which is I want to treat my employees the same way I treat my clients. And I want to understand those things. I want to understand that the secret to treating the generations are the same across platforms. And you know what it is? And the reason why I mention this to you is because most lawyers are money focused, their businesses, profitability focused. But if they understand that the key to understanding you is the key to understanding their next customer and the key to helping you build a business and a practice and be the succession plan, they'll lean in. And so it's creating alignment with individually and with your teams or with your firms. And that's really what it's about. So we get to the most important part, and not a minute too soon, which is how do we do this? We know the why. It makes sense. It makes business sense. We're human beings. We help each other. That's the why. The question is the how. And we have this system. And platinum rule, again, those other road rules we talked about, showing up, being real, and making it about others, just quintessential foundations to a mindset and a framework of being successful in building relationships. That's all you need, no matter who we coach, whether it's the CEO of DLA Piper, the largest firm, or whether it's a small firm or sole practitioner or someone in government. If you follow these rules, you'll win. And the good thing for you guys is if you learn them now when you're young, you have a lifetime to deploy them. And that's why this business is so important to me, because when I can teach young people how to create a relationship with themselves first and then with others, it's the gift that gives forever and for everyone. And so there's a system to do it. We have this system where here are the 6 process of how to connect the generations, but I'm leaving out a whole bunch of work, guys, because remember, what happens to you is because of you, and you only control you. So if you want to build a relationship, what's the relationship you need to understand first? Is yourself, right? Yourself. People answer the question, my parents? No, not your parents. Yourself. Because if you understand yourself, then you have the key to being able to apply the platinum rule and do all those things to make it about others. So we have this program where we go through where you learn your strengths, you learn your values, skills, and passions, and you learn your brand. And all of those things in a way that's focused on you delivering value to other people about them. Because you're not the hero of your story. They are. And we teach you actually your story based on all those components. Your strengths, your values, your skills, your passions, your brand, and how you can help other people and deliver value. And that is the work that you need to do. You need to coach and train yourself. That's the work we needed to do in grade school. That's the work we need to do every day. That's the work that creates the relationships and strengthens them within the firm and with our peers, and quite frankly, at home. And so the question is, what are you going to do to decide to do that? How many self-help books do you read, or business books, or relationship books? Do you know that the great CEOs read 60 a year? If I turned my thing to my library over there, I actually have this new app that distills books for me because I want to read so many books about how to connect with people. And so let's focus on how to do it. First thing is mindset. We got to break through the myths that it's us against them, us against the seniors. And we have to figure out how to work harder to connect with them. And so that is about being an optimist and not a pessimist, seeing every difficulty as an opportunity to break. That's about tolerance for other people. Look at the Me Too movement. Look at what we're doing in the world of trying to get gender and age and all this equality. That's about mindset. That's about a shift in the way we're going to work. And that's about making it about others authentically, not salesy, not just because I want to get business, not just because I want to make partner or just because I want to get a promotion or be seen as the best brand or the best person at the government, but because I want to make a difference and I want to connect. And that's all about self, guys. And so it's really important to get that dialed in. And if we look at the step two is you really have to take personal responsibility and accountability to drive your outcomes. There's a picture of the street because, as some coach or therapist once said to me, yes, in my 34-year marriage, I have been to a therapist. They said, clean your side of the street first. Change everything you can change to be better. And then you worry about what everyone else can change. And that's about taking ownership for how do I build good relationships? And one of the questions that was preceded for me is how do I balance and take care of myself first and balance all these things? Well, time, I have 3 kids. I worked hard. Yes, it is more pressureful now with the technology. I got a watch, I got a phone, I got everything beeping for me. And so it is a little bit more difficult. But I put my oxygen mask on first. I was at Orange Theory this morning working out at 5 a.m. so I could take care of myself. Because if I can't take care of myself, how am I going to help you guys? And so you must, like in the plane, the reason you put your oxygen mask on first is so you can help others. You have to take the accountability to balance that for yourself. And there are plenty of people that have to skim and do those things. So what? The question is, are there tips and tools to do it? For sure. And can we get into it? But it's a mindset, is I can do that. And I'm going to do it. And I take care of myself first. And it also relates to who you associate with and where you spend your time, with negative people or positive people, how you say things. And I'm going to tell you this, is no one will really care how much you know until they know how much you care. So care about yourself first. John Maxwell said that. And then they will know how much you care about them. And it's about accountability. And so, for young people, what I say to them is, this is simple stuff. It's not complex, not easy to apply, but it's simple. So basically, it's your friggin' move. What are you going to do? So we've got to stop whining about what the world has done for us and start taking action. And so hopefully this is some of those tips. So I'm going to give you some tips around skill set because the generations are so different. Believe it or not, old people and most human beings, they like face-to-face. Even this webinar is difficult. So if people like face-to-face, you follow the platinum rule and you give them face-to-face. And seniors are more likely to like face-to-face. So it may come across as they want you in the office too long or they need you to be in person, but they like that. And that's where our relationship skills are honed. We get better personally at relationships. We get better at communicating. We get better at serving other people. And so do the face-to-face. And by the way, each of you need to eat and drink every day. Do you know? Try to eat and drink with a client, or try and eat and drink with a partner, or try and eat and drink with a friend, a peer, a co-counsel. Everyone has to eat. And there's a Cornell study of firehouses that says the most productive firehouses and the best performing are the ones that eat together. So really focus on creating real relationships, not just going in and checking in, but making sure that you can become better and you help those people around you become better. And it's a challenge. I get it. You got to reach out to people and they're busy. And you also need to learn all those things I just told you, your strengths, your values, your skills, your passion, your story, to create this connective tissue, to build trust. And you have to use vulnerability, believe it or not, which is another technique, and probably the number one skill of a great leader is vulnerability. The question is, how do you do that? How do you create vulnerability? And how do you share vulnerability? And how do you get vulnerability from the people you work for so you can connect more deeply? If you can learn those things, I believe that there is what I call an ROI. So the question is, most businesses look at what is the return on investment of building a relationship. And of course we want to build relationships for good because we love people. But if you look at the way most firms or businesses or governments look at ROI, it's, if I learn how to build those relationships, will it help people save money? Will it help people make money? Will it help another human being? Or will it reduce risk for an organization? If you keep all those things in focus, that's the skill set that you need to understand about what your audience wants from you. And so you need to figure out how to make it about others, like we talked about, and how to deliver value. And other focused is really interesting. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back for a second. We need to figure out, how am I providing value? Every coaching session I have, it starts with, how can I serve you? And it ends with, what did you hear? And did I serve you the way I needed to serve you? Because if not, I got to work harder, or we got to figure something else out. And that's about really determining how to provide value to others. And there's a couple of fundamental things I want you guys to think about there. One is really employing gratitude as a method of conversations and humility. So I'm thankful, and understanding how thankful you are for what you have and expressing that. Because people react more positively to a gracious and kind person than anything else. Matter of fact, that's my word for the year, is kindness. But how do you demonstrate that? Using gratitude and humility, making it about those other people. It's a skill that you can learn tools to do that. And so let's talk about some of those tools real quick, and then we'll go to questions. A tool set is what you want to use to build a culture. And I hear from people, especially attorneys in government jobs or people in government jobs, look, this is a government job, I can't create a culture. But I'm going to tell you this, individuals create culture. Companies don't create culture. You want to see a change in your culture? Start being the change you want to see, and start creating the culture, and use these tools to do it. I want you to actually use kindness as a method, and to use gratitude, as we talked about, and caring, and demonstrate that in the words you choose by asking people what you can do for them to help and how you can provide value to them. I want you to actually kind of challenge people. I want you to ask a lot of questions, and we know we learned to do that well in law school. You guys and lawyers in general should be great at challenging, right? IRAC, issue, rules, analysis, conclusion. How do I understand and provide value? So ask great questions that provoke and push people to be better. Your generation is actually fantastic at it. You want more, and you deserve more. But you need to ask those challenging questions in a way that's focused on the entity, the firm, the organization, and what you want to contribute to that, and not you. I'm going to give you an example. I have a lot of young lawyers that we go coach, and they tell me, I want a second seat, I want to learn business development. The seniors really don't get that. I want to work harder, I want to do all these things. They don't get it. And I said, well, that sounds an awful lot about what you want. How about framing it in a way, I want to do all those things because I want to be the future of the firm, and I want to help us get clients, and I want to learn how to do those things. So it's challenging in a way that provides value to other people. And then, of course, I want you to apply all these things to everyone, up and down. Got kind of a question that said, how do I treat staff different than attorneys? Well, here's the answer to that. You don't. Hello? We're all human beings. We all want to be cared about. And you treat everyone the way they want to be treated in the platinum rule, as intently as you can. And I don't want to hear that there's no time to do it, because there's just as much time to do that as there is to say good morning. So, I want you to kind of share your experiences, and I want you to really apply that platinum rule. And that's best done by asking great questions. We have this whole technique of how to ask great questions. Also, how to share, if you want to change something in your firm, how to ask permission to give your opinion about something that might be different. Another amazing tool in coaching. But really, guys, it's about our job in what we teach is to teach you guys how to coach yourself. Yes, we do on-demand coaching. Yes, you can call us, text us, and at any time we'll help you figure out your problem in our organization. But the best jobs we do is when we teach you how to think about it in a way that is consistent with who you are to get that done. And the last thing is this. You need to create alignment around shared goals and priorities for employee and client engagement. But guys, for God's sake, you must be concise and clear. You must have clarity. You must think. You must do your homework first. And you must be clear to the partners about what you want. If you want something from them, you got to tell them that, or you're not going to get it. And so The tools, and we can provide a list for you maybe for all those people that are participating in this webinar. The tools are relatively easy tools. Like I said, this is not simple to apply. Matter of fact, daily I have to remind myself of this stuff. But it is about choosing the mindset and then wanting to get it done and wanting to make the connection and make a difference. And we got a lot of questions submitted, Joanne. So maybe we want to talk about them and start going through them. But guys, if you heard anything that resonated with you or you want any particular questions answered, let us know and I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Dan. We do have some questions and I'll get right to them. Young lawyers, many as we talked about, who are digital natives, may be more receptive to the idea of leveraging technology to enhance communication and provide better service to clients. This would also include remote work. However, their more senior counterparts, who are often the decision makers in the adoption or not of new technology in the law practice, may not be as enthusiastic as they are. What are some tips for young lawyers as they try to persuade their supervisors to consider using technology to become more efficient and effective at work?
Yeah, so I mean, adopting all the tools that we talked about in the skills, right? It's a mindset challenge that you have to begin with. Older attorneys may not be familiar with the technology, or they may not know, or they may not know how younger people want to be spoken with, or how technology may help and how clients may believe it. And so it's your job to do your homework and to explain it in a way that really makes sense to the senior. So it's great to ask some clients some questions, go with that feedback that the clients gave you to prove your point, maybe to ask to test something, to take ownership for it, and explain to them why you would like to do that. And it may take 2 or 3 tries. And quite frankly, at the end, if they're not listening, you may have to say to them, look, do I have permission to be honest with you? Which is, look, we're in the dark ages and there's a new world there. And I really want to help this firm get through this, and I need your help. And so I think it's mostly about the way we approach the challenge with people and understanding where they're coming from and asking them why they're resistant to it and having a dialogue and conversation. So I think the methodology is adopting, hey, the platinum rule. I get that this is where you are and I'm going to treat you the way you want to be treated. So if you're going to have that conversation, by the way, don't text it to someone. Set a meeting, go to lunch, have an appointment to discuss it, do it the way they want to do it, and get feedback from them and ask great questions and come armed with clarity and data. Most people cannot refute data. And if they do, they might say to you, I've had this happen. Yeah, I'm never going to do that. However, I understand that the practice needs it. And so then the question is, okay, if you never want to do it, how do we help the firm do it to succeed? And how am I a part of that?
Thank you. Next question. As young lawyers, the focus tends to be on our own leadership paths and how to market ourselves to our bosses, but it would be short-sighted not to think about lawyers coming after us. Are there any particular communication tips you have for us millennials on how to communicate with the next generation of young lawyers?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Look, that's an age-old problem in leadership, managing up versus managing down. And you want to apply the platinum rule again, which is to really understand where the younger lawyers are. So they may even be more frustrated with the technology things, and it's your job to teach them to bridge the gap between the generations, and to also tell them about what are the rules of the firm and how you've experienced it and how you've navigated it. It would be foolish for you to not understand and want to demand growth from the seniors, but not to give it. And so this whole design of practicing what you preach and trying to figure out how to go both ways in terms of leadership is great for you, because it will teach you not only how to manage up, but to manage down and how to lead. And you can actually emulate the things that you're trying to lead or get the seniors to do by leading in the way you want to do it and explaining what worked and what did not work by using those tools of, vulnerability, connecting, all the things we talked about, storytelling.
The next question. It bothers me to see other attorneys, usually senior to me, treat staff and junior attorneys, usually my fellow millennials, in a negative way. And I see the negative impact it is having on the attorneys themselves. They blame the employee slash millennial, but fail to see that that they are the common element. I want to help, but don't feel comfortable calling them out directly. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, call them out. I mean, it's the way you call them out. So, maybe, hey, you take them to lunch, like I said, and say, um, I've been working with this, and this is what I've been experiencing, and do I have permission to tell you what I've heard, what I've experienced, and what I think might be more productive, in a manner to do it the right way, and I sure would appreciate it. And by the way, I'm happy to help you bridge that gap or do anything I can. It's the challenger method of sales. You go in and you ask questions about, hey, don't you care about succession plan? Don't you care about retention? If you retain an employee for over 3 years, doesn't that save us a lot of money? I think there's some quick tips and tricks we could do to save some money and increase retention and increase engagement. I have some ideas I wanted to banter. What do you like about this idea? What don't you like about this idea? So again, it's the way you approach it. But look, what's going to happen is you're going to hate it so much you're going to leave, or you're going to do something about it. So why don't you teach yourself to be the leader you want to be by calling them out on it? Bad behavior is not good, and bad behavior is never good. And we need to figure out how to reduce bad behavior. And it's all of our jobs to do that in a constructive way. And so push yourself to do that in a constructive way. We do that all the time in terms of coaching, whether it's people working for you or not. There are ways to, again, apply the platinum rule. Understand what are they really, what's their need? The need of a senior attorney is that people come and engage, they bill hours, they're happy about billing those hours, they're engaged, and they service the clients. And if you can frame it in that way, 99% of the time they'll listen to you. So actually demonstrate to them that you are not the millennial, or millennials are not the way they think they are, by being mature and having that type of conversation in a way where you don't get set off, in a way where you handle it strongly.
Next question. How do you affect change in the thinking of unseen legacy partners in a firm having decentralized management?
Okay, you can. Sometimes you don't, is the answer to that question. But the answer is little by little. You control what you can control in your sphere. And so, in some firms, here's a tool that we've seen, which are next generation councils or task forces, that are disparate in terms of offices, but more centralized. And they meet. Big companies that we work with, like Merrill Lynch, they actually have a task force which job is not only to have the millennials meet, but to have cross-generational meetings where they actually discuss these issues. And they've kind of done fun things like play games, like Family Feud, where they answer questions and they talk to each other. But the real thing is you've got to get the conversation going, and you got to be honest about it. And you kind of got to put yourself out there, whether you like it or not. And the question is, what type of leader are you, and are you ready to take on that challenge, and do you believe strongly enough in it? And not to be apathetic. And so often, especially in big firms, we say, this is just the way it is. It's decentralized, and so I'm not going to start. So you can start something in your small office and see if it works, and then take it from there, and then go out and see who you can get from the rest of the firm, and so on and so forth.
So we've had, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and find the right champions. It's always good to find a champion millennial with you that has a great book of business and is a rising star, or a young partner that might want to take that on, that is seen as the future of the firm.
Good. We've had a couple of questions about how to mitigate relationships that might have gone sour. How do you repair a relationship with someone outside of your generation? What advice might you have for that?
Yeah, so I love that, because we get to coach all the time. And I have, in particular, a very, very senior person who is working with another very, very senior person in a consulting organization. where they worked cross departments and it was a cross-functional department thing, and he really wasn't in the same department as his boss for that particular project, and the boss hated him and just experienced him horribly. And we worked through coaching, and in the end of it, we said, no matter what, you need to go back to that person and make amends and figure out how to repair it and be honest about it. And the client was really cool about it, because I said to the client, this is about your growth. It's about your growth in having uncomfortable conversations. It's about your growth in being able to say, I might have been wrong. I'm sorry you experienced me this way, and I want to change it. What can I do? And the person can say to you, you can do nothing because you suck. But it's all what the power you give it is. Like, that's unfortunate. I'm really trying. You can only be your best self to do it. But I think the repairing of relationships that have gone south is the best way to test leadership and vulnerability. And if you can master that, you can connect all sorts of differing opinions. And so I say, go at it headstrong in a way that serves the other person, that has gratitude and humility, and is not about you doing it for the sake of you getting a better distribution or making partner, but for the sake of you really want to repair and have that conversation. It's a great question.
So the other questions have somewhat of a similar theme. How can you handle an attorney or someone in your organization who thinks that they are your boss, but in reality they are not, and you have responsibilities to another partner or to another person in the organization? How do you navigate those relationships when you want to be respectful of management, but specifically your direct supervisors?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, look, there are two things that you can do. Is with how many of us have seen that? That's age-old problem, which is that this associate thinks, the senior associate thinks they own me. They're gunning for partnership. They drive me super hard, but they're really not my boss, and I report to someone else, and this is 10% or 20% of my job. And so I just want to tell them to go screw themselves. What do I do? And I say, again, those are the situations that make the leaders that eventually lead firms, that you figure out how to solve a problem. And the answer to the question is carefully. And the methodology of how to do it is by dissecting what the challenge is and how you're going to have that tough conversation. So, we talk about this all the time. When you have too much to do and you have a lot of masters, you really need to learn to skim well and to manage while it's skimming. So you could get mad at the person and just find them difficult to deal with, or you can become a master in communicating to them what they need for the moment in a way that that works for you. And sometimes it's going to be a big hassle, but the forethought of shifting the mindset, and sometimes it may be, hey, do I have permission to be completely honest with you? Here's what I'm experiencing from you. You must have experienced this before from someone else. How did you deal with it? And how do you think I should deal with it with you? Because it's not productive and it's not helping me. And I'm really here just to serve you. And I want to make sure I do as good a job on that project as another project. So what do you have to give me? So, right, you change the nature of it, where you were looking at the person as an adversary. You start to look at them as, how do I convert them into a mentor by demonstrating I want to serve them and care about them too? And how do I create these mentors out of people that are very difficult? And it's a crafty skill, but really it is using the platinum rule, being present and showing up, being real and authentic and having the tough conversation, and understanding that you understand the person's plight. And again, being straight to who you are, even if the person won't capitulate and remains difficult.
So some of the things that we've been talking about have really been about having some of these very difficult conversations in our careers. Do you have any tips or advice for sort of psyching yourself up, getting prepared to go into the office to have that difficult conversations? Are there things that you do to prepare for difficult conversations?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I do when I'm preparing for a difficult conversation is get sick to my stomach. Now, it is really something that most people will do, is get sick to their stomach, because conflict is such a difficult thing. I don't look at it, I try to change my mindset to not look at it as conflict and to more look at it as I have a challenge to serve someone. So even when I was running big organizations and I had to fire someone, I had to frame it, all of those difficult conversations, in a way that I could explain that I was being true to who I was, my story, the value, and trying to deliver value to them, and making it about them. And so one of the techniques to do that is to ask permission to have a difficult conversation. By asking someone permission to tell them the truth when it's a difficult conversation, you do a couple of things. The first thing you do is you shift control to them. 99% of the time, they'll say yes, and they will lean in and listen more. So by asking them for permission to, like, I'd really like to share with you some thoughts that I've been having trouble with, and I know it's going to be a difficult conversation, but I'd really like to be honest with you and get to the other side where we both can be productive. Is that okay with you? They'll say yes, and they will think you've respected them, and they'll start to listen much more carefully. And then instead of just blurting out the problem, which usually relates to you and is about you, you ask questions. So for example, I've noticed in this particular situation that you feel very pressured or stressed for time when doling out assignments or when working with me. I'm wondering how I might be able to help it because it's causing a lot of conflict with some of the other things. Is there a better way that we should be working together? So it's a question instead of, hey, you suck at managing me, and this is really hard, and I'm frustrated as heck. So it's about asking questions in a way that try and solve their problem and make it about them. People mostly are focused on themselves. It's a human condition about survival. And so if you can master those types of skills, there really is a way to have artful, difficult conversations with lots of people, and people will start to rely on you for understanding that you are bold and direct, but that there's always a underpinning of wanting to help the firm or helping others rather than serving yourself. Like, hey, I didn't get a raise is not a good thing to lead with, but hey, do I have permission to tell you I've been working really hard? I understand that all these other people got raises, and I was wondering what was the rationale around me not getting a raise, or what went into the decision making, and what could I do better to make sure I get one next time. It's all a matter of how you frame. And by the way, guys, we're lawyers. We're paid to learn to speak like this. We're paid to learn to do this in courts. We're paid to learn to do this in closing deals. We're paid to learn to do this in advocating for our government clients. What better practice than when you actually, the stakes are you. So I think, and again, that's about grounding and really understanding who you are and what you want to get out of it.
A couple more questions. I see we have just a few minutes left. One question was asking for advice about crafting emails. Do you have any tips for crafting emails to senior partners or members of management to sort of guarantee a response? The question says, I'm wordy and I think it's affecting this.
Yeah, well, so look, here's the first thing. Bold language from Dan, don't be wordy. I do have tips about emails, and here's what I do when I talk or I do an email. One is if I'm sending a sensitive email that I think is important, I try and do it and then come back to it later with a fresh perspective. And what I bring to that fresh perspective is how much of this email is about me and what I need directly, and how much of the email is about serving or making it about the other person. And you can look at it when people are interviewing for jobs or all these things, they'll have 14 eyes in it. Look at how many eyes in you have it, or how many questions do you have for them about what you're going to do to help them. Every time I do an email, I sit on it for a while, especially my business development emails or my client focus emails. I come back to them and I say, is that about me or is that about helping solve the problem? And 99% of the times when I focus the email on them and delivering value to them, I get a response because they see that the email is done in a way where I crafted it to be very clear. The other thing is structure it with bullets, structure it with sections, be very clear about what you want. Never send an email where you want more than 3 things from someone, and maybe lead with those 3 things and close with those 3 things. But make sure, again, that you're framing it under the platinum rule, which is you understand what that person's looking for from you and what they have to do with it, and how you're serving them to help you help them.
So again, we have just a few more minutes. The next question is, any advice for responding when upper management or supervisors throw you under the bus?
Respond immediately, super angrily, and shoot it off right away. No, don't do that. I just think there's always real value in waiting a day and looking at what's the worst case scenario and trying to look at, okay, you believe you were thrown under the bus. Is there another purpose or outcome of what happened? Was that person just trying to save time? Or was that person truly about, and so basically assuming positive intent, if you can, is the first step. And then, again, if something bothers you like that, you need to use the skills to have the conversation about it and not bother you. And again, it needs to be framed in the way that it's about the other person. It's just like having a fight, with anyone. Or you're leasing something, you're buying someone told you something you don't like. You have to figure out what is the methodology that I'm going to do to help us both get to where we are. But here's the deal. You cannot forget about it and let it build up. You must learn the communication skills. Again, we should have been teaching them in grade school. If you do not learn communication skills and you do not face things head on, they only get worse with time. And so you really need to be true and ask yourself every time, am I being the guy or gal that I need to be in this situation? But you must approach it.
And last question. My supervisor is very new to my practice area. How do I show respect when I know more about the practice area than my supervisor?
Okay, so just the way that question's framed is all about the person. I know more, they know less, they should listen to me more. And so I would love to have the question designed to be more in working with a new person that's not new to the subject matter area. How do I help them understand the value that I can bring to them on an ongoing basis so I can get a chance to help better? And the answer is you got to frame it like that, and you need to let them understand. So it's not marching in there and saying, I'm an expert in this, and say, look, here's what I've learned, here's what I've experienced. I'd love to be able to help you with that. Do you think you need some help, or what's the best way I could help you with it? Or is there a way that we could devise where I could take the knowledge I had and we could make 2 + 2 = 20? And so, again, you get out of the me thing, because here's the truth. No one gives a shit about you. Human nature is to give about themselves. And so we call it with them. What's in it for them? How do you approach everything? What's in it for them instead of what's in it for me, which is with them. And if you really think about how you're going to approach your boss that you may know more in, that you could help more, how are you going to demonstrate what's in it for them without being threatening, without being demanding? Again, all artful things that will make you better with clients, better in your personal life, a better lawyer, a better manager of a firm, a better sole practitioner. But here's what I got to tell you, since it's the last question. It's hard work. And not only is it hard work, it takes a lot of time to do things the right thing. And so you just got to practice. And the more times at bat you have to do this stuff, the better you'll get it. But I would say this, really get a good sense of who you are and what the value you bring, and learn how to explain it in a way that serves others, and go with that. And overall, most of the problems and questions you ask me can be solved with that real clear vision.
Well, thank you. That is about all the time we have for today. Dan, we really appreciate your time. Again, thank the ABA Wildy for their support. To learn more about Dan, please visit Launchbox 365 or connect with him on social media. Thank you all so much and have a great day.
Thank you.